Good afternoon. NFTs, the moment we've all been waiting for. Can everyone hear me okay? That's good. Well, Achilles, in his welcoming remarks yesterday, said he was really looking forward to learning all about NFTs in this panel. I don't think he's going to learn that much from me. This is my phone. But fortunately, I have three tremendous panelists who know a lot about this stuff. And unusually, as it's actually really very technical, or a lot of it is technical, unusually I'm going to ask the panelists to introduce themselves with just a very brief introduction about who they are and what they do. Audrey, do you want to kick off?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Audrey O. I'm the CEO and co-founder of TRLab. We're a platform that's a global curated platform fusing NFT technology with fine art. Our mission is to onboard the next generation of art enthusiasts to participate, learn, and collect art through digital-first experiences based on the blockchain.
Michael.
So Michael Zancan, I'm an artist now, an NFT artist, I would say, since 2 years ago. I started to be an artist very early, and I was doing painting for about 15 years. But also I was a programmer, and I've done my career into programming. And when I discovered about NFTs 2 years ago, I really jumped in and discovered a new world, like a blank canvas to explore, and really engaged in NFTs, and I became, in the span of 1 year, the top-selling artist on the blockchain Tezos. And it's been quite a journey, yeah.
Hi, everyone. It's an honor for me to be here. Good afternoon. I'm Serena Tabacchi, and I'm a curator of digital art. I've been in the space for quite some time, since, NFTs were a word that nobody in the room knew what that stand for. I've helped a number of artists getting to learn about technologies through an organization I co-founded called MOCTA, Museum of Contemporary Digital Art. Prior to that, I was at the Tate, and since then I've been curating shows here in Florence at Strozzi, and now in Rome about the metaverse. So,
fantastic, thank you. I think with this panel, context is all, and there's an amazing backstory to the discussion we're going to have. And what I'm going to try and do is, as concisely as possible, tell this fairly extraordinary story. Firstly, we've been concerned with definitions in this conference, and a definition is a pretty important starting place here. So let me read one definition, what an NFT is. An NFT is a unique digital contract on the blockchain that records the ownership of a digital file of an artwork, or a meme, or a video, or pretty well anything. These tokens are traded and speculated using cryptocurrency. That's I think, the sort of essence of these things. Now, 2 years ago, in 2021, we were in the group of NFT mania, particularly when this thing here sold for 69 million at Christie's. This is Everydays, which is a JPEG of all the drawings that the digital artist Beeple had done for 14 years. The interesting thing about it is that what made 69 million were not the original drawings, it was a JPEG of this collage of the drawings. And of course, I'm showing it on the screen now. You can access it freely on any phone, any computer, but of course, I don't have the JPEG that says I own this thing. It's a JPEG, that's what's sold. Okay, we'll get on to that in a minute. we'll kick that around, but that's what it was defined in the catalog. In 2021, the market for NFTs was on fire. Overall sales reached 20.2 billion, according to CryptoSlate. Then in 2022, the market went nuclear. Sales reached 55 billion. Now, to give you a sense of perspective on that, the entire traditional art market is usually at tops about 65 billion. And that figure, of course, in 2022 would have included NFTs. So this was an enormous expansion of the market. And we had some extraordinary one-off prices. We can find it. This CryptoPunk, which is one of the very first editions of NFTs back in 2017, this particular CryptoPunk made 24 million in 2022. Almost 100,000 NFT collections were launched in 2022. The previous year, it had been 14,500. So the market became saturated, and there weren't really enough real buyers. Fascinatingly, it's been estimated that about 46% of all NFT sales in 2022 were what's called wash trades, where the seller and the buyer are the same entity, and the price is artificially inflated through this mechanism. One of the reasons there weren't enough buyers was the value of cryptocurrencies collapsed. In 2022, Ether, which is the main cryptocurrency used for NFTs, lost 2/3 of its value, and Tezos lost 3/4 of its value. The NFT market hasn't really recovered. If you look at CryptoSlam, which is one of the best sources of objective information on this, back in August 2021, daily sales reached 500 million. Yesterday, they were down to 20.4 million. Beeple's JPEG, we can go back to that, that has been split up by the buyer, Metakovan, who's a Singapore-based crypto speculator, for want of a better word. You set up a virtual museum on the metaverse, which you can visit, and you can see hundreds of these images. Now, the museum is pretty deserted when you visit it, but there are little ATM machines, virtual ATM machines everywhere, selling tokens, B20 tokens, which allows you to invest in this NFT on a fractional basis. Now, interestingly, in March 2021, when the market was at its height, those tokens were selling for $22. The value now is 13 cents. They're effectively valueless, like thousands and thousands of other NFTs that are out there in the market. They won't die, they won't go away because they're on the blockchain, but they're valueless. But fear not, if you have an unsellable NFT now, you can go to a company called Unsold, and they will buy it. And then you can declare it as a loss on your tax return, which is quite handy. So the NFT market, you can't really get away from this fact that it has crashed. But one positive thing to emerge out of this wreckage, is the resilience of digital art. Crypto Slate magazine, which isn't a free magazine, it's not a specialist art magazine, says there is a market for high-end artistic NFTs. And Art Blocks Curated, which is an NFT platform which showcases and sells some of the most ambitious art NFTs, that was the 4th most traded collection in 2022. And it's currently number 14, so it's still holding its own in this space. And generative artists like Michaël, we'll get you to talk about what generative art is in a moment, who exploit the creative potential of algorithms, are the sort of rising stars in this space, I think we can say. Another is Tyler Hobbs. We go forward. This is a unique NFT from the Fidenza series. Now, it sold for $442,000 at Christie's in February. So there is some life out there. And at the end of the day here, we'll have an opportunity to see some representative examples, including Michael's work, at the exhibition at the Aria Gallery. Okay, so this has been a pretty wild ride. Given the dramatic decline in sales volumes and prices in the NFT space, I'm just wondering how you have adapted your projects and your business action. How have you coped with the situation? Let's start with you, Audrey.
So I have a bit of a different perspective because I think TRLab has always been art first. My family had founded Reyburn Art Museum in Shanghai back in 2010, and I actually only got into NFTs because I thought that it was a really exciting potential avenue for young people like myself to engage in art. And actually we found that the artists, foundations, and partners that we're talking to now, they haven't shied away from the potential of what's happening with this exciting technology because they understand that it's more than just financial data on a screen. There's so much out there about what the technology can do, and I think generative art is an amazing art form that had previously existed but was then highlighted by the technology. And we most recently worked with the Alexander Calder Foundation on an educational experience centered on the blockchain. And we were specifically asked to only release it after the market had dropped. Because I think that when we think about our target audience, we're thinking about people who have never had access, especially intimate access to art.
We'll talk about that specific strand in a moment. Michael, you were an interesting situation because you were the top-selling artist on Tezos, but you decided to keep the cryptocurrency, didn't you?
Yes, which was, in hindsight, a very bad idea. But I started to sell my work at the top of the curve. And it went down for 2 years. So what I sold in the beginning, I kept my income as cryptocurrency, and now it's like 20% of the value it was.
How did you adapt to this situation, though?
I didn't really adapt. I was just focused on the work, and I didn't have time to adapt. And now that the tax season is coming, I really need to fit in. And I don't know what to do. I have a lawyer, I have an accountant, and I don't know what to do.
So the accountants are doing the adapting?
Yeah, and well, nobody is capable of saying how this is going to be taxed at the moment. But yeah, big loss of value of this crypto income. If I had been more wise, I would have transformed this crypto
Which
currency.
people did virtually the day after, didn't he? He just cashed it into fiat dollars, didn't he?
But as an artist, you need to focus on making your work, your art. And the sale, well, they happen. Yeah. And then it's more from the collector's perspective that this decrease of value of the cryptocurrency is a real problem for investors. Okay. But the artists, they make some money on the primary sale, they get the royalty as well. So in the end, artists always win in this scheme, I guess.
Serena, it was interesting, I covered in 2022, there was an exhibition at Unit Gallery, which you were involved in for the company that was acting as an intermediary with Italian museums, using famous paintings to create NFTs, which was an interesting phase. How did that sort of pan out in the end?
Well, it's been an interesting journey, I must say, and one of the experiences I happened to curate and participate in is what you were saying. This exhibition that was done in London back in 2000 and last year, 22, and it was through this company called Cinello that was creating one-on-one replicas of museums' works through partnerships they've created with museums, national museums primarily. And those standards called DAW as digital artwork is a patent that they've created back in 2016, well before NFTs came to life, even though everyone else understood that they were NFTs, but they were not. So it was an interesting way for creating sustainability of bringing works outside of museums and creating kind of like impossible shows. So putting together works that are unmovable, and at the same time creating a sustainability for the museums itself.
But the price points of them were quite intimidating. I know, for example, there was a Leonardo Da Vinci JPEG, and it was edition of what, 6 or 7 or something? And it was
9.
9, and the highest price was 500,000 euros?
No, less than that, 240.
250.
Yeah.
Did any of them sell at that price level?
There was an edition sold, yes.
Yeah,
One of
okay.
the 9, yes, yeah.
Okay, okay.
To an Italian collector,
Okay.
yes, yeah.
So at the moment, people say, well, the market is corrected, the bubble's burst, the speculators are gone, we're now down to the really serious people, the serious artists. But one thing I find quite difficult to work out is the distinction between art NFTs and NFT collectibles. And where does art begin and end in this space, and when do the collectibles come in? Let's see if we can find the, let's go back. Why don't you start that, Michael? How do you think about this? When does art begin?
I consider myself that NFT, many artists would disagree with me, NFT is a medium. So when I create art for the NFT market, because there are so many components that are outside the art making itself, like the way it is collected, the way collectors engage in a sale, the mechanism of the sales themselves can be very creative. So I think the fact that this system of the blockchain allows to build something very different, to approach the art and the digital ownership, makes it a medium for the art. So even
well,
for...
let's simplify. We've got a CryptoPunk here.
Yeah, even for the
now,
CryptoPunk.
we're in Florence here. I always used to think that the CryptoKitties and CryptoPunks back in 2017 were the sort of Cimabue and Giotto of NFTs. So we've got the Giotto of NFTs here. So I think let's have a bit of fun. And everyone has to do this. We're in Australia. Let's vote. Who thinks this is art and who thinks it isn't? Hands up.
It's an alien, so it must be art.
What do we got? Not really majority, is it? Right, okay.
But as soon as we ask the question, is it art or not, it probably is, I would say.
Why is that the case?
Well, because we ask the question, well, this is the proper of contemporary art, is asking the question, what is art?
Sure.
And so, and I strongly believe this is art because it's a completely new way of showing a piece of art and asking that question, is it art?
Okay.
So, and I think that, as I said, the blockchain allows so many new ways to look at a piece of art, to sell a piece of art, that it's art itself.
What do you think, Serena?
I think that's a very important word that we haven't mentioned yet, since we're talking about NFTs, which is community. So people came together mainly on the internet, on Twitter and other social media platforms. I know now the algorithms have changed, so people don't like them as much. But because there was a need of creating a real contact, direct contact between artists that were known within galleries or museums networks, to build their own network, to build their own community. And community, I think, is the key word that made this alien becoming art.
Can we talk a little bit about generative art? Because I think a lot of people might not know exactly what we're talking about here. Michael, you're a generative artist. What does that mean?
Oh, to make it simple, I create images with lines of code, programming code. So I write a program, which is a very handcrafted manner, and the end result is an image or a series of images. And there is a component of randomness. So when you collect one of these works, so you collect a possible output of an algorithm. And at the moment when you collect, a number is randomly generated, and it's going to be the deterministic seed of the image you're going to get. So the work of art, of a generative art, lies in the algorithm itself.
How much is the element of chance here? How does that word apply in the situation?
What do you mean?
The element of chance in the creative process.
Yeah, the chance is a great component of it. But, an algorithm is capable of making some variations around the central theme, the central work.
Sorry. Serena, I gather you were talking very interesting earlier about the application of this actually to poetry NFTs?
Yes, absolutely. We were saying, I mean, you made a great point about women artists in the space. There's always been a topic in museums and collections, of course, but I was actually noticing that I know more women in the NFT space than men, or people coming from various backgrounds. And to me, it's quite refreshing because something that is quite popular and sells well these days is poetry on the blockchain, created through the support of algorithms. So that is a group of women called Diverse Verse that is creating a number of exhibitions. You can find also a piece by Sasha Stiles in Rome, in Palazzo Cipolla, currently on show. And it's getting real, audience appreciation. Okay. So that's interesting. Another group of women came about called WOCA, Women of Crypto Art, and those people are actually connected throughout blockchain networks, communicating from different countries. So,
because we're responding to that
and they made
earlier
a market for themselves. You know. So.
We're responding to that earlier point made in the earlier panel that, and I don't know how reliable the data is, but apparently there are just 5% women artists in producing NFTs. Now, what do you think of that, Audrey?
It's something that I've noticed, and we were talking about this just before it came up. But I think I have a different perspective because I'm not an artist, I'm not a curator. I run a tech platform that services artists and creators. And so when I think about what your question, going back to art NFTs versus collectible NFTs, to me, the delineation lies in two ways. The first is, what is this NFT in existence to serve? Because we have released free NFTs that are badges for proof of participation on the blockchain that are not artworks, but they're there to serve as a proof point that you were there to experience the artwork. And I think you could call that a collectible NFT, but I don't feel like the line needs to be so clear if we know what the purpose is for. And the second thing that I think about is intellectual property, where I strongly believe in artists holding on to their intellectual property. And so that's one way that I use to differentiate between art and collectible NFTs. Okay. But going to the women question in particular, I was saying that I was at a crypto pizza meetup in New York last week, and there were about 50 people in the room, and I was the only woman. And I do think, as a young woman in the space, I have noticed that it has been harder for us to promote female artists that we work with, and also it's been harder to find other female collaborators in the space.
Okay. I want to next discuss the whole issue of democratization, because NFTs have been perceived and written about as a really positive force for democratization in a very elitist art world. Has that been the case, or has it been a force for mass exploitation? Because lots of these editions have just been what are called rug pulls, where the person who put out the NFTs made a lot of money initially, and then the people who bought them are left with valueless tokens. But what are the positive democratization elements that have come across with NFTs? Serena, should we stop you?
Well, I think the main topic that I think it's interesting in that sense for NFTs is that it creates functionalities. Like, it's not art that is, shown on screen only, but you can create actions as collectors that you can perform in terms of creating in a collaborative way with artists and also with the rest of the community, which I think creates a democratic way of enjoying art, We've seen art now on public places like in New York, in London, and in different squares around the globe. And that's a way of showing your original work with a function. So we know artists that are unknown because we only know their wallet address, but they create this kind of connection between the public and what they create. So it's a collaborative way, it's a new way of producing, I think, ultra-contemporary artworks that are in contact with people, even if you don't know who's on the other side. So to me, that's a very democratic angle that make art more accessible, preserving the ownership.
And Michaël, there's the whole element of price. I was talking to you about what do you price your works at, and you have works that are an edition of 1,000, and you can buy them for 10 euros,
yes.
Which is just non-existent in the mainstream.
Yeah, we talk a lot about NFTs with the huge numbers that we heard in the news, but actually you can enter NFTs with €1 if you want. And the principle of editions, meaning you produce an artwork, an image, for instance, and you can sell like 100 editions of that same image. So you can have 100 different collectors. Of course, the price is divided by this number of editions.
I can buy a work for a tenner from you, which is I'm going to do, which is marvelous. And they'll give me pleasure.
So I try to have a range of possibilities and prices. So editions with a large number, which are much cheaper, and more exclusive ones, all the way to one-on-ones, sure, which are unique and only one person can purchase them. But
that's great.
I think about democratization is a really great thing to be able to purchase at low prices. Yeah.
Audrey, yeah, we spoke about the Calder Foundation project and the way you're using NFTs very creatively as a tool in education to bring people in who previously might not have been interested in a major artist like Calder. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yes, for sure. So I think I'm personally less interested in applications like around the financing of NFTs or fractionalizing NFTs to democratize art. I think it's been co-opted in the word democratization in that way. For us, we think about it as, hey, this is the first time where anyone in the world, no matter where you're located, no matter your income level, no matter your connections within the traditional art world, can easily collect an art NFT. But then the problem comes with there are bad actors that are very easily able to collect these NFTs that are not thinking of them as artworks, but maybe more thinking about them as financial instruments. Sure. And so for us, everything that we did with Calder was playing against that idea. You would have to go through a 1 hour-long quiz, including answering an essay question about how you thought of Calder's work, to even qualify you for a free NFT that then gave you access into the foundation, spaces like Calder's Studio and Roxbury, as well as a special artwork in collaboration with a digital artist named Raoul Marx. But what we found was that because we encouraged or forced people in a way to study so much about the art and the artist before they collected or purchased anything, we found that there's not been a single listing on the secondary market for the NFTs, which I think is quite special, given that NFTs are so easily liquid.
So speculators don't like quizzes?
I suppose not. Not when they're 1 hour long.
That's great. One important issue that has been talked about and written about a lot is the carbon footprint of NFTs. And I think we don't want to go to, it will be discussed in probably one of the next panel actually after the coffee break. But what can we say about the concrete advances that have been made to reduce carbon emissions for NFTs? Michaël, do you want to start?
Yeah, the blockchain started with Bitcoin, and then the favorite chain for NFTs is Ethereum, and they were based on the technology which was extremely consuming in terms of electricity, a technology named proof of work. And,
could you explain, proof of work is it's a competition between lots and lots of computers to
exactly.
produce the definitive contract.
All across the planet compete to validate a new block on the blockchain.
And proof of stake, by contrast?
Well, I'm not going to get into the details of that, but it's a million times more efficient.
Yeah, yeah.
And Ethereum has made the move. It took them like 3 or 4 years to get to this point of switching to a proof of stake technology now. But some blockchains have it native, like Tezos, and this is why I choose this blockchain in the first place.
Yeah, yeah.
So
and that has NFT, a very low carbon footprint, doesn't it?
NFT doesn't consume more electricity than a tweet, for instance.
Okay, Serena?
Yeah, after the merge, which happened the last 15 September, if I'm not mistaken, that means the layer 2 Ethereum, that's what we're talking about now, became way more efficient, as Michael was saying, by a staking mechanism, where the consumption was reduced down to nearly 99%. Compared to layer 1. So that's definitely an improvement. So basically, if you're minting an NFT or buying an NFT right now, you're not really killing the planet, or as much as you would keep your refrigerator on all day. So you can compare it to that. On the contrary, what really happened is that gas fees went really, really high, which now to activate a contract will cost you nearly $200, $300, depending on what kind of work you want to create as an NFT. So I think that's been, up and downs with that.
Okay, the final question, the future of NFT art. We're now in a situation where it's emerged from the wreckage and interesting artists are being appreciated, they're making good prices. But what's the next phase? We've got Giotto here, but what's Botticelli going to look like? Michael, start with you. Just very briefly, what do you reckon?
It's a living Botticelli,
It's hard to say, but for sure the attention has switched to art more than speculation now. So I suppose that in the future, NFTs will be associated with good art rather than speculative.
Well, what about you, Audrey? What's the next stage for you? What would you like to see?
I think is for people to recognize all the different aspects of the technology, where I think people now, they only see it as, oh, like this is something that is related to finance, something sold for this amount. But I think there's so much with the technology that can go towards highlighting legacy of amazing artists and also encouraging younger people, people of the TikTok generation to take their attention away from TikTok and into participating and learning and being rewarded for time and effort spent. So I'm excited for that narrative to shift.
20 seconds. Serena, what's Botticelli going to look like?
Blockchain is nothing new. We've been knowing this concept since 2016 and prior to that. So what I'm excited about is that museums, galleries, and people are opening up to new technologies since it's becoming way more accessible, and we're actually seeing these in collections and learning more about technology without being scared.
Okay, we're out of time, but one question. Does anyone want to ask a question? Great, we've explained it all. Oh no, sorry. Could you introduce yourself?
Yes, of course. I'm Caterina Nicitra. I'm a big fan of Serena and, of course, TRLab. Anyways, what do you guys think about AI?
So we were actually ahead of the AI trend a little bit. We worked with an author, an AI expert named Lee Kai-Fu last year, and he had written a book called AI 2041, where there are 10 short stories on AI, and we collaborated and commissioned with 7 digital artists, including Joshua Davis, Brendan Dawes, to be inspired by the book and create artworks in correspondence with the book. And so I think that it's a very exciting field. I'm excited to follow how artists use AI as a technology to evolve. And I also think that it's a tool that much younger people are starting to use in day-to-day lives that is really going to affect how we communicate with each other and how we think.
Okay, that sums up the thing. sums it up very well. Okay, thank you very much indeed. I think we're now having a coffee break. Thank you.